Good heart, though, thank goodness.
You can start it whenever you'd like, Sherry.
Okay, thank you, Sam. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the Housing Advisory Commission, Monday, April 19th, 2021. Let's see, calling to order. And let's move to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call for ayes and nays. Scott?
Aye.
Jason?
Yep.
Shauna?
Yep.
Bud?
Yes.
Nicola?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Sherry, yes, okay. So the agenda has been approved and seconded. Let's move on to the approval of January and February meeting minutes. I want to thank Sam, was her name Heidi? Hannah?
Waverly Dueling.
Waverly, I'm sorry, I really got it wrong. I did send her an email, thank you for doing it. It was very kind of her. She's an intern, was an intern with Sam's department, and she was very kind enough to type them up. Do I have a motion for approval of January and February meeting minutes?
I have one question first.
Yes,
Am
sir.
I the Steve that was referred to about the Hester Road land negotiation in the January minutes?
Yes, that was the intent.
Okay, then I move the adoption of both the January and February minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bud. Okay, roll call for approval. Scott?
Yes.
Bud?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Shauna?
Yes.
Nicola?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
And Sherry, yes. Okay, that's all done. Okay, moving on to new business. I was very lax in getting my report out to everybody. I sent it out late this morning. We are doing at the moment, the city is putting together a steering committee to assemble and discuss input from each of the boards and commissions for comprehensive plan development and strategic planning model of governance. You can read through all of this because we will be discussing it at the next meeting, but we also have work to do because there is a timeline on this and we each have things we have got to do. We have to get the final information to the city on June the 30th. So we did not have a meeting last month where we could have gotten this out earlier, and I was neglectful to get it out earlier this month. But please read through it, and if you have any questions about it, let me know, because we have got to submit some information and some input from us. I am at this point the steering committee representative for HAC, so I really hope we could get our act together and get some information down. I'm a bit concerned because we all took a goal at the end of last year, and we don't seem to have a lot of input on the goals except for Shauna, who's been working hard. So I would really like to see if we can get definitely be working on our goals. So each one of us has a report at each meeting that reports on progress. Sam, do you want to talk a little bit more about the city's concept for this new commission report?
The Comp Plan Steering Committee?
Mhm.
Sure, yeah, I'd be glad to. It's really not that much different than what Sherry said. Maybe I'll say it a little bit different way. But what the city administration is trying to do is make sure that all of the different aspects of city operations are represented, and especially where there's already a board or commission that is giving some feedback to city staff on initiatives that council has directed staff to do through the city manager. So the HAC is already pretty far along in this because the housing study or the housing needs assessment is the existing conditions, and it could serve in that way. So that's kind of a check. But moving on into what we've heard and what we want the future to be, that's where probably more effort's going to need to be spent. And I know Sherry wants to do it a little bit different and in kind of involving the whole commission. Other groups are going to delegate that more. So if you can do it however you want. If you want to host a separate session on this based on some of the feedback, and it's a hot topic obviously with housing. So you can do that at a future point. And then it doesn't mean it's going to change the direction you're going, but it gives you an opportunity to hear just in case maybe you've missed something. But keeping in mind that just because it's a goal that you have as a group or the city has as an administration doesn't mean it actually has to be done or implemented by the city. It could still be stated and documented that this is something we would like to, a goal we'd like to achieve, an objective we'd like to have, or as you may have seen in the document Sherry forwarded, a value that you have. It doesn't mean that it actually has to be implemented by the city as an organization. We can make sure it happens and we can document it that it happens. But don't keep from saying it, even if somebody else is going to be the one to do it, I guess is how I would put that.
Now, Sam, I think it would be very good if we did have an open session to get public input. But that does not have to be done by June 30th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So I think we ought to focus on, at this point, keep that in the back of our minds, that we would very much like to have public input on what they see as a goal for us. And certainly I absolutely want everybody's input from the commission. And keeping the housing study in mind. Read through what I sent and see if we can work this out. I would love to assign chunks of this to individual commissioners. My only hesitation is that the goals that we worked on at the end of the year don't seem to be progressing very fast. And I would hate to assign something that has deadlines on it to commissioners that might not be able to fulfill the deadline. So that's up to you guys. If you want to split this up and divide and conquer, then that would be great. Or we can work on it all together. So Sam, how would we do feedback on this point? Because we're supposed to be public with everything we do. Would we have a separate meeting in a couple weeks? A work session where we could propose it, or how would we do this?
Yeah, you can have a special meeting that does not align with your regular meeting if you'd like to do it that way. I know that I'm doing a project also regarding the expansion of the Oats Trail, and I'm still hoping for an in-person opportunity that maybe aligns a little bit better with folks that are outside anyway for a recreation purpose, where they would attend something in person. For something regarding housing policy, maybe you want to just plan on doing it virtually. It kind of depends on who you're trying to target. If you're not concerned about that being an obstacle, the virtual meeting as the only option, then I would say just plan on that. But we don't have the technology to do hybrid, where we can have virtual attendees and an in-person meeting, or in-person attendees in a virtual meeting. We just don't have the technology for that. So you need to choose what platform you want to use, and I can assist you with setting that up. And then Sherry or whoever I could work with on what the format and the process would be for inviting people to comment. We probably want to give them some kind of a foundation to work from, a template, so that it's not just a wide open forum. If it was an in-person meeting, that might be a little bit more feasible, but with a virtual meeting, I think it's better to have some kind of reference for people to chew on before they pop into the meeting to comment.
So So in-person meetings at this point is still restricted to outdoors?
Yeah, and actually, and that has to do with, we're actually not having any official city meetings in person at all. But because of the project that I'm working on with the Oats Trail, that's not an official city board or commission or council. So we can do it outdoors if we want to.
Gotcha. Yes, Steve.
I appreciate your reminding us about our commitments on goals. I am not remembering mine and would suggest that in the old business section in future agendas, we include a one-word statement about the goal and the commissioner assigned. That would help me stay on target and move forward. And I also think that following that, I know I respond much better to deadlines than open-ended things, and I would suggest that we seriously consider you making assignments to us about related topics for the comprehensive plan, so that I think we could get more done working on them individually and then reacting to them as a group to build it into a final group perspective.
How does everybody else feel?
Agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. That seems like a good way to structure it so that we each have our piece, that we know, when it's due, like he said.
Okay. All right.
Are we referring to the goals right now, or is this the new document that you sent out, Sherry?
I think Steve is referring to both. Is that correct? Yeah.
Okay.
The first part of on the old business section, we would be talking about the goals for 2021.
Right.
And then I think Steve was suggesting that I assign, is that correct, Steve, that I assign individuals pieces of this?
Or we volunteer for topics, or you cross-reference a topic to the goal that we're doing. I think that makes a lot of sense because the center or the harmony of those things. But I'm not clear yet on what the comprehensive plan is going to, the span of it. So maybe that isn't an effective connection. But yes, I think you should give us a topic and an understanding of what and when we need to get in feedback to the whole commission.
Okay, Sam, would you work with me on that?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. And I could respond to Steve's question also, which is that one of the council goals is housing for everyone. You might recall that. So that gives a lot of power, I think, to this group, this commission, to come up with policies that are going to help to meet that goal. But I think this overall process is going to be a 12 to 18 to 24 month process, depending on our staff time. So we're not farming out the comp plan update to a consultant. We want to make sure we have local ownership of it. And I know I sent you the warning email about our staff time, but I think we still want to try to keep control of it so that we can make sure that the things we're putting in there are achievable and fit the goals of the community and are not just something off the shelf. So I think we're fortunate, and this is something I told a couple other groups, is that this is the first time in history where we're combining a comp plan update with the creation of a strategic plan that is going to be dynamic and something the public can see on a regular basis. So that's a great opportunity to see where the short-term goals of the strategic plan that align with the budget can also talk to the longer-term goals of things like housing policy, which we're going to take many years to develop. So it's a good time to get in sort of on the ground floor while you're on a board like this.
Yeah, I was also pleased to see that City Council is thinking the same way we are, and that's going to be very helpful for us to understand that they're not asking us to think about something we've not even considered before, but they are very much focused on affordable housing. So that is something we've been trying to tackle, and let's hope we can move forward with some good ideas and things that City Council can actually act on. Okay, any other comments about the comp plan, strategic plan update? Yes, Sean.
Okay, and if this is, maybe I missed this on the agenda, kind of related to what you just said, even though it's not comp plan related. As far as like doing goals, in alignment with what city council has decided, this is a whole new topic. Maybe I should have put it under new business at the beginning. I'm really bad at this. The fact that we would like to see a tax lodged against transient guest lodging, is that on the agenda and I missed it? Like,
No, but it certainly is old business. Would you like to? Well,
yeah, so I would just like to talk about that at some point, and it was a tangent off of something you said, so I promise it wasn't fully unrelated.
Sam, can we add something to the agenda even though we approved it?
You can.
Let's do that. Okay, you're now D, Shauna. Thank you. Okay, all right, so let's move on to old business. Item A is 2021 goals, progress, and members updates. I sort of already brought that up a little bit. Do we have any updates from anybody? Steve, were you, Scott, were you able to work on anything while you were in New York?
No, none
Okay.
at all.
Okay. Nicola, do you have something?
Just to say that the cold shelter ended at the end of March, but we're still continuing to support families to find them other shelter resources and also housing. And the money that was raised by the Justice Committee, whatever was, we used till the end of March towards the cold shelter. But any balance that is there now goes towards paying, towards first month's rent, deposit, all of that, when we look for housing for the homeless families. With regard to the transitional housing, the two families are still in the transitional homes, and we're working with them to find something, but we haven't been successful yet. One of the families is hoping to actually buy a home. And so, again, we're trying to work with them on that. And we recently found out that Habitat for Humanity is now building 2 homes here in Oxford. And they've, let me show that to you. I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, but on Fuller Way, and we were hoping they're 3-bedroom homes, 2 homes, and we're hoping that maybe our families from the transitional homes could apply for this housing.
Is that over where the other Habitat houses are?
Well, we've got some Habitat housing by Raiseway close to us.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if there are others in this area. I think there are. So yeah, there are 2 homes coming up. So yeah, I think that's about it with respect to the transitional homes and the cold shelter.
Do you have ongoing funding from the city, or was the city funding only for the cold shelter time?
For the cold shelter. And then when we extended it for the month of March, the Justice Committee raised that money for us.
Okay. Anybody else have updates of things that they were working on? Yeah, Shauna, do you want to move that up to here now?
I was going to talk about my actual goal. Do you want me to talk about both things at once? Okay, my actual goal basically is the policy part of our goals. Sam and I have been talking about incentives for developers, and then Sam got a hold of me like a few weeks ago, and we didn't have a meeting last month, but Sam is doing the exciting thing of talking about actual mandates in planned urban developments for affordable housing. as a possibility. He's still looking into that. And in fact, it's been a few weeks since I talked to him. So if he does have more to say about that now, no, nothing more. But anyway, it was a
The
really
idea is
great.
still there, though.
What's up?
The idea is still there.
The idea is still there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do realize that there definitely are these staffing issues that Sam has been telling us about. And there's lots of stuff going on with COVID and other stuff. But Sam, I'm not done talking about incentives or mandates. But we did have these chats, and so I just wanted to update you guys that definitely policy changes of some sort are in the works.
So either Shauna or Sam, did the article that Steve found, the articles that Steve found for us this week, are they something that we can actually think about digging into for Oxford?
Mm-hmm.
I saw the headline regarding vacancy. I haven't dug any further in that to see what the defense for that would be, if it would be supported. I think it's from a public safety perspective. I believe the article said something about the fire chief's concern with the safety of the community with regard to vacant buildings. So I don't know if that we would take that on or not. That might be a good assignment for somebody to research the reasoning behind that, or the legality that might support that. I don't foresee us taking that on right at this moment in time. But if somebody wanted to volunteer to research that or talk to the Hamilton city officials, that would be fine with me.
So I know that in the past we've needed to have an example in Ohio, and I thought that since Steve found that, and it's actually just outside our front door, that might be a plus because it's been done very close to us.
Well, it's not been approved, and that I think that would be a key step. But researching it prior to the approval would not be a bad thing, since it's in our backyard.
I
Yes.
do believe council did approve it.
Yeah.
I don't know what next steps that means. Bud, do you have any insight on that?
It's been a while in the making. And in fact, it probably started when I was the community development director. I'm somewhat surprised that it has taken them that long to get it to the point it did pass, despite vocal opposition to it. It is, at least when I was there, it was based on public safety and ways of financially being able to rectify situations as they occur. So part of it was about revenue to support the actions that the city would have to take on the vacant properties. However, I was somewhat shocked that as many people who came out not in support of that it actually passed, because I remember they started that in comprehensive inspections when I was there, and there were about 500 people at a public meeting yelling and screaming at me for about 3 hours one night, and it was just a general discussion about what we were thinking about doing. So again, I'm somewhat surprised that it moved forward with as much opposition as they received on it, even during COVID social distancing practices at City Council. I believe that I saw that there were about 200 people there around City Council. So, and it is based on safety. However, one of the things that I don't quite understand is the fire department already keeps and maintains a list of residential units and vacant property, commercial property, that they have a do not enter list created already. saying that, hey, these structures are too dangerous, and if there is a fire, we're going to contain property loss surrounding this property, but we're not going to go in. So I'm not quite sure how they decided to move forward on it, to be honest with you, as much controversy as it has created. But there are some other zoning things in Hamilton that I don't quite understand. So,
but do you want to work with me on this, on the research part?
sure.
Just the contact. So, because to sort of lead me, and so that I'm not wasting a lot of time calling the.
I can lead you, but I will not take an active role in contacting them, because as soon as I call, they will not.
No,
they'll know why I'm calling.
The contact would be me, but it's just a
Okay.
matter of you know Hamilton a lot better than I do.
Okay, sure. I'd be happy to.
I'd be happy to nose around a little bit too with some of my contacts. I'm friends with the fire chief and a couple of the council members.
Okay, great. That's terrific.
Steve goes way back on that one, so.
Steve just goes way back. You could have stopped right there.
So given that that's the case, I need a reminder about my goal, because I may have something to report if I know what the topic is.
Yes, sir. I will do that. Okay, I'll get an email out to everybody reminding them about their goals.
Oh, well, I meant now.
No.
Sam, do you have the goals list at your fingertips?
It usually comes out with the agenda.
The only one that I can remotely think would be was the original list drafted in January, 7 and 8. 8 had to do with the financing and the funding for low-cost home purchase mechanisms. So I know this has come up a little bit with Scott's work too, but I think with your background with the different kinds of nonprofits, I think that would probably be the most suited for you to kind of bird dog that one, if you will.
So I will type up so that you have it in written form and get it out to everybody. Does that work?
Yes, but I would still like that short list to be on each agenda as another reminder, please.
Yes, sir. We will do that. Okay. Glenn, welcome. Do you have an update on your goal that you were assigned at the beginning of the year?
Unfortunately not.
Okay. All righty. So let's move on to C, and this is definitely Sam, City's Western Knolls property.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry. As I put in the email, great news. Council approved the authorization for a city manager to sign the option to purchase agreement. And we quickly got that signed by Episcopal Retirement Services for 8 of the 47 acres on the Western Knolls property. So that's a great milestone that's been about 3 years in the making now, going back to the when Alan was helping to provide staff support for this commission. And there was an idea that maybe we should proactively do something with the Western Knolls property. So thank you to those of you that were involved at that time that helped kind of give us some reasoning to do our annual design charrette out there in that neighborhood, which helped provide the background information for respondents. And that led to the connection with Episcopal Retirement, which they've been looking at Oxford for a while, I understand. So now we have the option to purchase agreement assigned. It's only that, an option. And that's related to the funding. So if Episcopal Retirement is successful in their funding application, they won't actually know how likely their funding application will be to score well until late fall, probably September. And then at that point, they will move forward with the application to the City Planning Commission. And then with that, there'll be an application to Ohio Housing Finance in February, and then they'll find out in April. So waiting, I think, with bated breath to see how what they call the QAP comes out in September. and that'll determine their willingness to move forward or not. So right now they just have the earnest money, if you will, that's been sent to the city, but which is not a purchase. And then if for some reason things don't look good for this round of QAP, or they don't score well and don't receive funding because of competition next spring, that will leave the option for the city and Episcopal Retirement to discuss potentially extending for another year. And so we'll know a lot more then whether it's worthwhile to do that if we have other interested parties or not. But at this point, it seems we would try to work with Episcopal Retirement for as long as possible without tying up the land for too long either.
And so is there any other interest in that property at the moment?
Yes.
So that's good. Anybody, Sam, was there information that you were gonna give us? Should we talk about the staffing for the commission?
That's up to you. Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. It's maybe something in the strategic plan is kind of what I was thinking. That probably should end up in it. You know, if this is a goal of the city, we can't expect to not get a lot done without some dedicated staff. So whether it's in-house or external for a nonprofit, I think some staff time needs to be set aside to keep some of these things going. You all are volunteering, you know, in this capacity, and I've got several hats, you know, that I'm managing also. So I think the realistic thing is that it's going to take, you know, probably a half-time staff member that's dedicating half of their time to this for accomplishing housing goals in the community. Notice I didn't say for the city, but just making sure that it happens in the community in some way.
And could we also discuss the change in commissioners that is coming up, or the continuance, or whatever we're going to have? And was there research that you had thought about in terms of commissioners' requirements and things like that?
Yeah, and I apologize, I didn't get that research done. I was going to check to see if there was, we had someone appointed who has not attended. So whether there's a certain number of absences that would mean that there's a vacancy that's open. And so July is typically the time when new applications are received and appointments made. And so I think a couple of you, in case you were confused, might have seen that there's vacancies when there's not actually vacancies yet. It's just a heads up that there will be some in July if no one applies, or if terms are not renewed. And so those of you that can serve another term, if you want to serve, would want to reapply to make sure you have your spot.
Okay, do we know
all the limitation on number of consecutive terms?
I believe for this group, it's 2.
Does that include being appointed to a vacancy?
It does not.
And those that are reapplying, is it the same deadline for July, or has it to be earlier?
Much earlier, because the appointments are made in June. I don't recall if it's the first meeting in June or the second meeting. I believe it's the first meeting in June, so you would want to get your applications in no later than May. So the clerk has plenty of time to compile everything for the council.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, does anybody have anything else they wish to discuss? Yes.
Just looping back to my goal responsibility, I think you may recall that I spoke with some folks from First Financial Bank who are involved with the Community Reinvestment Act and other things that could impact our ability to develop low and moderate income housing. So given the fact that there may be some vacancies on the commission, there was one of those folks who lives in Hamilton and works out of the main office in Hamilton who expressed interest in becoming a commissioner. So I'll reach out to her and advise her of this time frame. I realize she wouldn't be eligible to be a voting member, But I strongly believe that that connection to them could be very advantageous to our being able to move forward.
You can send her the link. That might be the easiest way, Steve. Okay. All right. So if there's no other information or discussion, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Gary, did,
No.
Sure.
Shawna, yes, speak. Do you need something?
I'm item D on the agenda.
I thought you had taken care of that. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So what I wanted to bring up was I actually had asked for it to be on the agenda and it just wasn't, and then jury duty got me all kerfluffled. But basically, I think it's very important, while we have a lot of support in city council, to get before them. And my understanding from the departmental reports is that the city may lose a bunch of revenue due to people, stuff with Rita and people working in different cities. So I think it's really important to get off of Doug's desk the fact that transient guest lodging is currently not being taxed by the city. The reason I'm bringing this up in Housing Advisory Commission is because I would personally like to see that money partly go to the Housing Trust Fund. This is something we've discussed before. I'd really like to know how to get this off of a desk and to city council, because my last communication was that it is sitting on a desk and that this ordinance needs to be written and sent to council. So
Do we have any feedback or knowledge from our two city council members?
I don't
I
believe
can send
we've
an
heard
email.
anything on our end. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
No, I'm just saying I can send an email. Just to nudge them.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Trying to think if there's anything else that just popped into my mind when Shawna was talking. Okay, whatever it was, it can wait till next month. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I just didn't know if you wanted me to talk a little bit about the jobs bill.
That would be great. I didn't know if you had digested enough of it yet.
Well, it will take a long time to digest all of it, but what I tried to do was skim through the jobs bill. I sent all of you a copy of the press release where there's a lot of information for a press release in it, but also I sent you a section by section, and it almost looks like when you open that document that it's the COVID relief bill. It is not. And of particular importance to the committee would probably be starting on page 73, kind of goes through some of the things that impact housing. There are some interesting things in the public transportation section, the broadband section, and the power upgrade section, which I think is of interest and could be accessory to housing issues. Primarily, a lot of the programs that they're talking about on page 74 are financed through tax credits. So if this is approved, it will be going to the traditional way of doing affordable housing, which will be with larger development organizations and those people who are nimble enough to understand tax credits and that type of thing. So one of the things that we need to be careful about is that when you're talking about local developers, we're really going to, and if they want to participate in any of these programs, they're going to have to be nimble enough, or we're going to have to be able to help them work in cooperation with other partners. The other thing that I think is of particular importance is that there's a whole section that was created for grant program that was created for affordable housing and eliminating, and those communities that would receive this grant funding would be working on eliminating exclusionary zoning, et cetera. So that's kind of an interesting new pot of funds. The other thing that in the program under public housing for the authority that's kind of wild, the amounts of money that that this bill is asking for is 40 billion going for capital needs for public housing. And if we base it on our formula that how we get funded normally, our normal, we will have $40 million, which is unheard of. We don't even know how we could possibly spend that money in a time frame. So one of the real questions is going to be with this bill is how in the world the money is going to get out the door. How the federal government doesn't even have staff to crank it out of the door. So that's one of the big questions. However, it's relying traditionally on the larger developers to create some of the housing and some of the programs that they're talking about. So that's kind of it in my first blush on it, but I'll be digging into a little bit more and send out just a summary sheet on it. But just wanted to report out on it.
Thank you, Bud.
Yep.
Sam, in terms of the questionnaire that's going around for the city about how to spend the COVID money, is there anything that HAC could suggest for some of it going to our little pot of money?
Or possibly to fund a half-time staff person, since this relates so much to infrastructure.
Right. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, you might, just shooting from the hip a little bit, you might want to think about, what can this be used for that would allow something that's more directly related to housing be spent instead, sort of like not really a reimbursement, but an in lieu of. So in other words, if this could go for safety for sidewalk ramps, then CDBG could be spent more directly for housing, which is a little bit more of a direct application.
You just stole one of my comments to the assistant city manager.
Okay, well, you can use that then. It's better coming from you guys. So no, I can't really think of anything else since we don't really have our own housing authority, but if Butler Metro or somebody was, planning to do projects in our neck of the woods, then obviously that would be something that, there could be a good pairing for. But CDBG, paying for something that CDBG really doesn't have to spend money on, I think would be, a more direct application.
One of the things that I can tell you is that if this new infrastructure bill goes through and we receive the amount that we've calculated by our normal formula, one part of capital funds is also creating a pool of, and we have the ability under capital funds to be able to go out and purchase new properties. So that's certainly one thing that we're looking at, that if we do receive that money, what parts of the county are underserved with public housing. And we're trying to become more geographically dispersed anyway throughout the county because there are greater needs than just Hamilton and Middletown. So that's certainly something that we can look at. The other interesting thing, a little nugget in the bill as it's currently written, is that you would no longer need, you could count CDBG, any other federal dollars with these funds as your local match, which has never been something that you can do. I can see Steve nodding his head. Because we had a lot of CDBG projects with Partners in Prime and Hamilton where we had to come up with a local match. So that's kind of an interesting thing, that any of the new monies that are proposed, that you can use other federal assistance as your local match. So that's really helpful to the local government, not having to provide that on transportation projects, it's usually 10% has to come in a local match on transportation grants. So for that, it's kind of a new twist, which is a welcome twist to anything to get the money out.
Thank you very much, Bud. Okay, any other information points? Anything we want to discuss before we adjourn early? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn then, please? Everybody wants to stay on. Jason. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of adjournment? Roll call. Scott? Bud?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
Nicola?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
And me. Yep. Okay. Thank you all. This was good for some input. I certainly have assignments that I have to do, and I would hope that you guys would look back over the goals and remember what you are responsible for, and let's see if we can get moving on this as well as the new assignment from the city. Okay, Sam, do you have any last words? Okay, thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.